the physical textbooks that we'll be getting will also have access to a program called Realize, where it's all digital, and it is also available not only on the students' devices on their computers, but it'll be available for iPads, for their phones, across devices. So that'll be something, especially with this distance learning that we're going through right now, it'll be something very valuable in the next months. Here's a bit of an overview of all of the topics that are covered in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Today's focus will be mainly on Algebra 1, and if you just kind of glance at the topics that are available there, we have linear functions and quadratics. It's different than what the Math 1 course has been teaching for the past few years. Math 1 has been focusing on linear functions and on exponential functions, so now we're going back to this traditional model, and these will be the topics that will be covered in this course. Let's look first at what the student components will be. What will each of our students be getting for next year? So they will be getting their print student edition textbook, which looks like this. Along with that, they will get a consumable student companion workbook that has lessons and practice problems for them for every lesson that comes with the textbook. They'll also be getting access to the digital coursework called Pearson Realize. And in that Realize platform, they will have an e-text student edition, which is static. It's like a PDF type of a textbook that they'll be able to use. And this one will be able to be downloaded onto their devices, whether they're offline or online, they'll have access to this. So having that internet connection is one less worry once they download this onto their devices. They will also have an interactive student edition, which comes in an app called Realize Reader. And this interactive student edition will have activities, examples, assignments that they'll be able to work on interactively through there. They'll get auto-scored, auto-graded, all sorts of different activities that they'll be able to do through that. And again, this would all be available online or offline to our students. There's also a component called virtual nerd lesson videos, which come with every lesson in the textbook. It's a quick little 4 or 5 minute lesson on what the topic was for that lesson. So those would be available to them as well. Along with that, the program also comes with something called Math Excel for School, which is practice and assessments directly on their devices. And we'll go more into each of these in detail in a moment, but our students will be getting all of this starting next year. Teacher components. Teachers will be getting their print teacher's edition textbook. It comes in 2 volumes. They'll also be getting a program overview of the entire Algebra, Geometry, and Algebra 2 sequence of topics, just so that they're aware of everything that is happening, not only in their class, but in the rest of the classes. There's an assessment resource book that comes along with that. Access to the Pearson Realize digital courseware, just like the students. The difference is with the teacher component here, you'll also get that e-text, that interactive teacher's edition, the assessments that you'll be able to not only access, but you'll be able to customize and modify in different ways. There's instructional tools that are powered by Desmos. So as many of you know, Desmos is the graphing calculator website. So these instructional tools are embedded into specific lessons already. And there's differentiated practice with this Math Excel for School program. Depending on how students score, the program lends itself to different differentiated practice. And again, we'll go into more detail into that in a minute. Along with that, there's also professional development videos and resources for our teachers for every topic and for every lesson. And then last but not least, we have an ExamView assessment generator that can be used for extra assessments not already in the digital courseware that our teachers can write up. So let me pause there and see if there's any questions before we get into the course overview. Okay, so course overview, each course, this includes Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 will all come with this. You're going to have a classroom videos of the program components, beginning of your assessment, broad conceptual topics covering the Common Core State standards. So all of the standards are covered throughout the three courses. There's benchmark test every 2 topics already embedded into the program itself. We also have a mid-year and an end of course assessment that already comes with each of the courses. And along with all of that, right at the 3/4 mark of the school year, there's a next generation practice test, which can be used as practice and review for that CASP assessment at the end of the school year. So again, this is for all 3 courses. This is what they come with. And we also have performance tasks that are embedded into each of the courses. So there's different types of assessments throughout and different levels of assessments as well. So let's look at the Algebra 1 course topics. This is the main page of the Algebra 1 enVision course. And as we had said, the main focus of it is linear functions and quadratic functions. There's 11 total topics on here. So let's look at what each topic has. Each topic will start off in this teacher's edition by going through what they call a focus, math background focus. And this presents the content that the students are to cover in this topic. What are they supposed to learn? What are the standards that are covered in this topic? That's what this page is for. So the example that is over here on the side is topic 1 in Algebra 1, solving equations and inequalities. So you're given not only the standards, but you're given some examples of what those standards are in terms of actual mathematical problems. So this is, again, for every topic, this is how they will start, with this focus. After the focus, we have a page on coherence. So coherence is, okay, in this topic, we're going to be learning these standards. Looking back, how do these standards tie into what they were supposed to learn, in this case, in grade 7 and grade 8? And looking ahead, how will this help them to go on into the next algebra class? So in this case, Algebra 2. So it not only ties in the topics that are learned this year, but it looks at prior, the year before, or the 2 years before, and then after. So that's the coherence piece of this. After coherence, every topic comes with a page on rigor. So the 3 aspects of rigor would be the conceptual understanding, the procedural skill and fluency, and the applications. So it gives an example of how each of those 3 aspects are covered in this topic. So not just, a sentence explaining what conceptual understanding is, but actual examples of what is expected for this topic. So we've covered focus, coherence, and rigor. And then the 4th part of a topic overview would be the math practices. So in the math practices and processes, you're given different aspects highlighted into what they call habits of mind. So habits of mind would be the way of thinking mathematically, the way of doing math, and in such a way that it's tied to the math practices that we've had throughout the 5 or 6 years that we had the new standards, or longer than that. But they're given to you in a way that's set up into different categories. So for example, in this one, you have Model with Mathematics MP4. That's one of the math practice standards. But then you're given examples of how that would look in this topic. Model Math Practices 5, use appropriate tools strategically. Again, it gives you examples of how that standard would look in this topic. And then it gives you different questions to look through as this topic is being taught. So again, that's just a topic overview. These 4 ideas that go behind it. Each topic will also come with the following on here. You're going to have a PD video for the teacher on different content standards that should be covered on here. It's going to have a readiness assessment. It'll have a topic opener. some sort of an activity or something to introduce the topic. It'll also have a STEM project. It'll have the content-focused lessons, so all of the lessons that make up that topic. And it also comes with weekly Common Core Standards practice worksheets. These are PDFs with like one problem that could be used like as a warm-up type of a problem to cover those Common Core Standards as practice for the end-of-year assessments, things like that. Every topic also comes with what they call mathematical modeling in 3 acts, which is a 3-act task-based problem. It also comes with a Math Excel topic review, and it has the assessments and performance assessments, 2 different types of assessments here for each topic. So if we look at the topic planner, every topic is organized like this. You have your table of the lesson, and it's a little hard to see on here, but next to the lesson, like right here, 1.1, you have 2 days. So that's the suggested pacing. It should take 2 days to cover this lesson. If you read across, you have your new vocabulary, your objectives for the day, the essential understanding, and the standards that this is tied into. And this is for the entire topic. So this certain topic right here, solving equations and inequalities, I can look at these 2 pages together and plan out my 3 weeks that it would take me to teach through this. So let's look at this one right here, this topic 1. These are the 7 lessons that are in topic 1, solving equations and inequalities. Again, you have all of your standards listed on here. And if you notice the lesson in between 1.5 and 1.6, you have what they call the 3 acts task, which is a Common Core type of task that requires a lot of critical thinking from the students. Those are already embedded where they should be taught in this topic. And again, right before you have your topic opener, your STEM activity, and right after you have your assessments. So let's look at a specific lesson here, lesson overview. As I'm showing you the pages for the lesson overview, you're going to be seeing a lot of these little icons at the top of the page. What these icons are is all of this is available on the pearsonrealize.com website. So it'll either be available as a PDF or as some sort of a tutorial or an activity, but everything will be available on that website depending on the icon that you see at the top of the page. And just to give you another idea of what's available on that Realize website, your PD videos will be embedded into each lesson, the STEM projects, the 3-act tasks, and the assessments. Everything will be embedded into that. So let's look at actual student pages for this 1.1 operations on real numbers, so you have an idea of how the student textbooks look like. So these are the first 2 pages, 1.1. As you look at it, the first part of it, up at the top, it says critique and explain. This would be your lesson opener type of a thing. We'll go into more detail again into each of the specifics of these pages. But at the very top, you have your lesson opener, you have your vocabulary, you have your standard, your essential question, and then you get into the examples. And each of the examples tells the student what type of an example it is. You have a conceptual understanding example or an application example, and you're also given study tips. Right after each example, you have a try it problem, which is very similar to the problem that was just worked out, but now it's their turn to try it. And those icons that I was talking about, those are at the top of the pages, as you can see up there. So that was page 1 and 2. The next 2 pages for the same lesson, you continue on to an example 4, which looks like an application problem. And then at the end of that lesson, you have a concept summary, which is a summary of what should have been learned by the students during those examples. And every lesson will end with a concept summary and a do you understand, do you know how set of questions and problems. So this is set to be a formative assessment after every lesson. And then it goes on to what we would call like the homework assignment for the students, the practice and problem solving. It is set up into several different regions here. First one is understand type of problems, then practice, apply, and assessment practice. Those are the 4 different sets that make up the practice problems at the end of each lesson. So this lesson encompassed 6 pages like that. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail into what each of those are, starting with the page that's given to the teacher at the very beginning on teaching this lesson, operations on real numbers. This is where I would look for my focus, my coherence, and my rigor that we had talked about earlier. How do those 3 ideas apply to this specific lesson? This is where you will find that. You'll also get the content standards that are covered, the key vocabulary that'll be introduced to the students, and it'll come in English and in Spanish on the same page. And it'll give you also some type of a vocabulary activity to introduce this to the students. And then you have your math practice standards as well. So this is your lesson overview, the first page. Every lesson is set up to be taught in what's called a 4-step lesson structure. Step 1 would be explore, step 2, understand and apply, step 3, practice and problem solve, and then step 4, assess and differentiate. So we'll go through each of the steps in more detail right now. So let's start with step 1, explore. That is your introductory activity to the lesson. It'll be problem-based, and it'll be in any of these 3 categories that you see here. The one that we were looking at, the example that we were looking at, was critique and explain. And they'll vary throughout the textbook, but this is what they're focused on that step 1. Explore whatever that lesson concept will be. So this is the page that goes with the teacher edition, explaining that first step. So throughout the lesson here, you'll see ETP icons. So those are effective teaching practices, or otherwise known as CSTPs. For us to be able to incorporate into the lesson as we see fit. They give you ideas on, should we do this as a whole class, as a small group, independent? Different ideas are given through here. And the other thing that you'll see also down at the bottom is habits of mind questions that you can pose to the class to be able to practice those math standards. On the side over here, you're going to get a copy of both the digital and the print experiences that the students will see. So the top one is the digital, the way that it looks if they are on their device. And then the bottom one is the print if they have their physical textbook in front of them. And you'll also have sample student work so that you're able to kind of guide the discussion of whatever this explore task is. So that is your step 1 of the lesson. Step 2 is your understand and apply. So this is where the guided instruction happens for the class. You make connections back to step 1. You already have visual examples on there of this conceptual understanding, and then we're going to use those examples to build this concept summary at the end, and finish off with do you understand and do you know how as your formative assessments. So again, looking in more detail into step 2 here. So step 2, again, we're looking at the teacher edition here, starts off with your essential question. Focus the students back on what it is that we're supposed to be learning in this lesson. You're given probing questions to scaffold the student learning, so you don't have to sit there and come up with your questions on your own if you don't want to do that. And you're also given additional examples besides the example that's given in the textbook. So up at the top is the one example that the students had in their textbook, but available online, you have several other examples that follow that same model. So we all know that sometimes one example is not enough. That's all given in the teacher edition, so you don't have to be going back and forth from a print to a digital, things like that. It's all on the same page for you. Continuing on with step 2 on here, we're looking at the next examples. The pages in the student edition were example 2, 3, and 4. That's what we're looking at, but for the teacher edition. So each lesson has at least one example that will focus on the conceptual understanding, and it'll point that out. And each lesson will have at least one that focuses on application. And again, along with those, you're going to have extra examples if those are not enough. And every lesson will come with some type of a differentiated instruction for advanced learners, struggling learners, and English learners. And you'll see that at every lesson. And then to finish off step 2, you have common errors that you can point out to the class as you're going through this. And this will be in your teacher's edition. Sometimes you'll see it in the student edition as well. But it's always good to just kind of reference it back to finalize the lesson. And then, of course, you have your concept summary of everything that was taught, and then do you understand and do you know how? Your formative assessment. These could even work as exit tickets or different ideas on how to use this. So that's the end of step 2. That's your guided instruction. Step 3, we get into what's called practice and problem solve. This is the student's independent practice. That's where they either have the homework that they do at home or different types of activities. This is the pages that I was showing you that had the 4 different columns of understand, practice, apply, and assessment. Everything that you see in the student edition is available on the Realize platform. The nice thing about Realize is whatever is on Realize on Math Excel will be auto-scored. It'll be auto-differentiated. There's video tutorials on there. There's all sorts of learning aids for the students to use as they're going through these problems. And again, we'll go through a bit of that more again in a minute. So again, this is the page, the student page for practice and problem solve. It starts off with the first column being understand and then the second column being practice. But if you look at the teacher edition on here, it tells you that you can either assign all of this directly on the textbook, or you can assign it on the Realize platform and have it be adaptive practice and auto-graded, which is always really nice to do, especially when it comes to math homework like that. You have an item analysis of what examples tie in with what items. So in the lesson, we had 4 examples. So on the item analysis, it tells you what items go back to that example and to what depth of knowledge are they covered. So that's really nice to have as well. And if that's not enough practice, if we feel that these 33 problems so far are not enough for the students, there's additional practice that you're able to assign to them online. Same type of problems, just different, as we say. And then to finish off this practice and problem solving, hopefully you've noticed that at every page you have the corresponding answers to all of those problems. And then the last piece of it is the assessment practice. This is where we get that practice for the CASP or the SBAC or SAT or different things like that. So every lesson will have this. So that's the end of step 3. Step 4 now is assess and differentiate. So in assess and differentiate, every lesson will come with a lesson quiz, and this will be available print or online. And again, the online version is auto-scored, it's auto-assigned intervention, enrichment activities. It's very, very well thought out in terms of thinking of all of these lessons embedded into each topic here. And then it also has item analysis and response to intervention information so that we can differentiate assignments for the students. So let's look at that. So again, this is the student page and available online, both of them. If you can see on the right hand side, you have the online version, and then on the bottom you have the PDF version. And what this does is it tells you on the 5 questions, this is a 5-question lesson quiz. It tells you the depth of knowledge and it tells you the standards that are covered, but it also tells you if a student scores, for example, if they score between 0 and 3 points on this 5-point quiz, they need intervention. And it gives you 3 different PDFs, 3 different activities that you can assign to them for intervention. If the student scores 4 points, that means that they are on level of learning what was in this lesson, but there is still 3 extra activities that you can assign to them. Just because they're on level doesn't necessarily mean that they don't need anything else. And same thing if they're advanced. If they scored 5 points, it shows that they're advanced. There is still something for them, in this case enrichment, that they can do to further their learning of this lesson. So that's on step 4, and this page here shows you, again, without having to go to a different book or anything else, right in the teacher edition, it shows you what those additional practices would be. You have the reteach to build understanding, additional practice, enrichment, and mathematical literacy and vocabulary. And up at the top, it tells you what those should be used for intervention, for on-level, or for advanced students. And again, if those are not enough, there's other digital resources that can be assigned to these students. So this is what's called the Differentiation Resources Library. And again, everything is available digital, or if you want print, it's also available in print. Every one of these also comes with video tutorials, and they're like 4 or 5 minute videos. They're not overwhelming. They're not 30, 40-minute videos. They're 4 or 5 minute videos, quickly explain the topic, again, the lesson, for those students that require that. So here's the cycle, the topic cycle that goes with these differentiation opportunities. So we start the topic with a readiness assessment, and if all of our students were at the same level, learning at the same pace, this is what we would go. We'd teach the lesson, we'd do the lesson practice, the homework, we'd do the lesson quiz, we would repeat that for all the lessons, and then we would take our summative assessment. But we know that that's not the case. We know that at every point on here, we're going to have students that require intervention, that are on level, or that are advanced. So anywhere on here, we should have a chance for response to intervention. And all of those are given to us. And again, this is for every lesson. Every lesson has these 4 additional activities that you're able to assign to the students if you wanted to. It's not required, but they're there as this response to intervention. And then we get into the assessments and data. So that was the end of the lesson cycle. Now, in terms of assessments and data, lesson quizzes are embedded into every single lesson, but the program also has diagnostic, formative, summative assessments throughout the entire topic that can be used. And again, these are all available print or digital formats. And if you go with the digital formats, they will be auto-scored. And auto-generated assessments will have reports on Realize that show mastery, that show progress, and that show usage. So let me show you an example of that. So this is a teacher screen showing the average scores on the assessments. And if this was live, this is just a screenshot right here, but if this was live, I could click on each of the bars here on the bar graph, and it would tell me what it is. I could click on it, and it would take me to that specific assignment, show me every student score, every question, however I wanted to look at the data, it would show me that. But right now I'm just looking at the class average, and this is three different bar graphs that represent that. Right below it is the progress. So this shows me how much, in terms of the assignments that I have given to the class, how much have they completed? What's the class average in terms of completion rate? That's what that is showing me there. And then the bottom one shows the usage. When students log into Realize, how much time are they actually spending on here? So this is currently showing 55 minutes, 4 seconds. This is the average time spent per assignment, not per student, but per assignment. And again, I could, if this was live, I could click on each of the bars here, and it would take me to that specific assignment and show me by student or by assignment the data that I wanted to see on that. But again, average scores, class completion rate, and the average time spent on assignments. So that will be available on the Realize platform for all of our teachers. And for those of you that are joining us that are not math teachers, we are working on getting you access to the online platform so you're able to see some of this as well. This is once we get into the specifics of the data, and I clicked on a specific student, a specific quiz. This is what I see. So I see my list of students here, their scores, and I could click on the numbers of the questions, and it'll take me directly to the question, how they answered it, and all of this. Remember, everything that's on here has been auto-graded by the system, and it's all of these scores are embedded into this analysis automatically. And I can look at these scores by standards, by question, by student, or by performance. Maybe I have a cutoff of 70%, and I want to see how many students scored below 70%. I can do that. Again, that's all on the Realize platform. So just to kind of summarize everything that we've looked at right now, you have your topic overviews with the focus, the coherence, the rigor, the math practices. You have the topic planner with all of your vocabulary, your objectives for every lesson. And then you get more specific into the lesson overviews with everything that you need to teach for that day. So far, let me pause there for a minute and see if there are any questions. I'm not able to see the chat as I'm presenting here, so let me know if there's questions or not.
So Veronica, this is Joe. I've been trying to keep up with the chat. It's been going well. You've been answering a lot of the questions. It did just come up from Brandon about integration with PowerSchool and Schoology. There is no integration at this time, right?
Right, there is no integration at this time. We're working with a publisher. They use something called EC Bridge, which is the auto population of students into their system. So once we get, the actual content purchased, this should run just like Schoology, where you don't have to worry about inputting student grades in or inputting students into your classes. Unfortunately, that doesn't talk right now to our PowerSchool grades. So the grades don't auto-populate automatically into PowerSchool.
Thank you. That answered that question. And I guess while I have the microphone right now, Dan, you had mentioned just now about maybe having a session for student, what the student view looks like. And for those math teachers who do have that account that is quote unquote pilot right now that will go away sometime towards June, you can go in and make up a student right now and just play around with it and see what it looks like. That's how I've been learning a lot of the program. So that's Dan's question. And maybe that also answers your question, Melissa. And we are going to share with you guys here later a demo account also. So for those of you teachers who special ed or resource or anybody else who does not have that, you guys will be able to get in and play around with this too.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move on then. The next part of this is, yes, as Joe mentioned, we'll be sharing some demo accounts for those of you that don't have an account currently. We have, our math teachers have been given demo accounts. We got those, I believe, at the end of March, that they've been able to have access to those. So the publisher has been kind enough to share that with us, even though we haven't officially bought their product yet, but we will have those for you. So while we're on the topic of Pearson Realize, just to give you a quick little news update, Pearson Realize will be rebranded into Savvas Realize throughout the summer. So you might be logging into Pearson Realize, and then all of a sudden you'll see Savvas Realize on there. So they're doing this whole update. So just to let you know as you're going in through this. So we'll just call it Realize for now. But before we get into the actual Pearson Realize platform, just sharing some pacing information with you for the Algebra 1 class. Here's a list of what the publisher suggests in terms of how many days each topic should take. And if you start looking at the dates on here, it's a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with whatever the pacing is suggested by them. But we're also going to set up meetings next week with those teachers that would like to volunteer to be on the pacing meeting, and see if they have anything that they see maybe is not necessary for an Algebra 1 class, or maybe it's missing or things like that. But we're going to have that a week from today, on Tuesday, May 26th, and any teacher is welcome to participate in that if Once you see the actual topics and you see something on there that doesn't quite make sense to you, this would be the meeting to bring that up in. And this will be the first year that we'll be teaching this. So we're open. The pacing is really open to opinions, and nobody in our district has taught this before, so we have to start from somewhere, right? So we'll have that meeting next week for anyone that's interested. And before we get into the Pearson Realize platform, I wanted to share the attendance bit.ly with you guys so that you're able to enter your attendance for this. So let me just leave that up there for a minute. Or Joe, I don't know if the attendance can be put into the chat.
I'm doing that now.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So the question just came in from Ron about liking the current, liking Pearson, but the current pilot accounts, there are some features. And I chatted this to Heidi earlier, not sure if you caught it. There are components that are not working right now, like the adaptive practice by Newton. And we have a meeting later this week, the Modesto City Schools Tech Department and the the Pearson, or now to be called Savvas, their tech department. And I think in that meeting, we're going to find out things like when we will get our long-term accounts so that we don't have to worry about things getting erased. Those are the accounts we'll have for the 6 years of our adoption. So, and I'm going to ask about those things that weren't working, and I'm hoping it was because we were just in these pilot accounts and not in our long-term accounts.
Yeah, so after this Thursday meeting, we should have some answers to some of the questions that we've been getting from our teachers.
Carolyn brought up a question about how COVID-19 might affect pacing, and that would be something that those, the pacing meetings that we'll have next week would be good to talk about. But just so while we have everybody here, know that we're planning on, you guys know how it is. It's hard enough to teach all of Algebra 1, just those standards, let alone what might be missing. And we know usually that students right off the bat don't remember from last year until you start going through it. So we're going to have to do some scaffolding. We know that, but we really need to try to get through the standards for the year. So that's what we'll talk about.
All right, if there are no other questions,
Veronica, sorry, Randy Rubio just put his hand up to talk. So Randy, why don't you go ahead and unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, you can't click on that link to take attendance.
My link that I just put in the attendance, did you guys see that in the chat?
Yeah, but we couldn't click on it.
Yes, Randy, it allowed me to.
Oh, it likes you, Gwen.
I did it too.
The only person that likes me, I guess.
Then.
I did it too, Randy.
Stop it. You guys are just showing off now. Oh, in the chat. I got it. Thanks. Sorry.
All right, so for those of you that don't have an actual pilot teacher account, if you're a math teacher, we gave those to you back in March. But for the rest of you joining us today, you're able to log in using this, and you'll have access. Once you log in here, you'll have access to the 3 textbooks, not just Algebra. So let me go ahead and stop sharing this screen and go to the other one. Does anyone still need this up?
Yes.
Okay, Veronica, I'll leave it up there for a minute.
Veronica, could I ask a question though?
Of course.
For the attendance, I assume AGA was the correct section that we put for attendance?
Yes, AGA.
And my other question is, I know there's separate trainings for today for algebra, tomorrow geometry, and advanced algebra the following day. Is it beneficial for a resource teacher that covers all 3 to attend all 3?
We're going to be covering the same type of material in all 3 of them. The only reason why we split them up into the separate ones is so that here, the last 20 minutes or so, we could go into the actual algebra or geometry and look at the topics and see if any questions specific to that course come up. But if you're comfortable enough with today, with navigating everything with what you saw today, then you would be okay. You wouldn't necessarily need to come or
Understood.
attend.
Okay,
But
so-
if you want to another refresher, you're more than welcome to.
Okay. It just might be redundant is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing this screen. And I'll give you a minute to log in to the Pearson Realize platform. Those of you that have not been on there, some of our math teachers have already been on there. They've seen everything that's on there and all of that. Just to reiterate what Joe had said, just remember these are pilot accounts. And whatever is saved in these pilot accounts will go away. Once we get the actual teacher accounts, hopefully by Thursday we have an answer as to when that will be. Once we get the teacher accounts, the actual teacher accounts, whatever you save into those accounts will stay there for the life of the adoption. So you could create something next year and it'll be there for the rest of the years that we have this. Okay, but just keep that in mind as you're going through all of this. A lot of the assignments can be, they can be customized to certain ways. Another feature that the publisher has told us about is many teachers want to collaborate. So for example, maybe you have your Algebra 1 PLC at a school and you all decide to create a very specific test or a very specific assignment and you want to share it among all 6 of you. Right now, the Realize platform has no way of sharing between teachers. That is a feature that is supposed to be coming in an update. We were told in the summer, but with all this, shutdowns and furloughs going on, we're not completely sure about that at this moment. Let's hope. Well, we know that the publisher had several furloughs in terms of the people that were helping us. So hopefully that is still in the works to be released in the summer. But let me share the Pearson Realize website on my end. I know you guys have it on your computer already. Hopefully you were able to log in okay on that. But as you log in, you're going to have 3 different sections on here. You're going to have your browse, which is all of your curriculum. You're also going to have your specific classes, and then you're going to have your data, where you have all of your student scores. If you go to browse on the one that I'm showing you right now, there's several other programs going on. You should have 3. You should have the Algebra 1, the Geometry, and the Algebra 2. And then you're able to create as many classes as you want. Here is the part where I said this will be done automatically by the system. Teachers won't have to add their students one by one to the classes. This will be done automatically by the system. And then in the data is where I showed you all of the student information. So if I go to this sample class that we have here, let's say I have 5 classes. The 5 classes will show up right here. So the one that I'm looking at is a Math 1 3rd period. And you can see everything that you can do in that specific class. So if I click on the class, it'll take me to the assignments that I have already given them. And it'll give me all of the information for those. So for example, this one right here, as I'm looking at the icons, just the icons themselves will tell me what these are. Anything that's in blue is some sort of an activity, an example, practice, things like that. Anything that is in red is an assessment. Anything that is in purple will be a PDF. 3-act task will be in yellow, different things like that. But as I scroll down through this sample class, I can see that this first one, the 1.5, do you understand, was used as a wrap up on this date. Think of it as an exit ticket. Only 2 out of the 32 students completed it. This was the due date. This was the average. And if I wanted to get more specific into it, I could click on any of these. And again, just remember, this is one of those just pilot classes, made up students type of thing. Hopefully the scores are not like this in our real classes. But let me click on this topic 1 readiness assessment. If I click on it, it'll give me the information specific to that course. And again, let me pause right here. These are teacher accounts for the math teachers. We are working on getting somehow getting our resource teachers, our special ed teachers access to information like this as well. Okay, so that they're able to work with those students as much as possible. So again, I clicked on readiness assessment. If I look at it, it gives me the very basic information about what this was. But let's say that I want to look at the data for that assessment. I click on that and it tells me student by student, question by question, what it was. And if I want to know what that was, like this one got 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, it just tells me a lot of specifics in terms of the standard. I'm looking at the specific standards on here. If I want to change that to the questions, I click on questions and it tells me just by looking at the top graph up here, I can see, okay, question 15 was good. Students scored well, 21, correct. Question 14, not so good. You know, question 7 was a terrible question, maybe. What happened in question 3? So it gives me a quick little visual of what happened with this assessment. And here are the scores along with the standards. I can click on the arrow next to each question and I'll see the actual question. This student right here got it incorrect. This is what they chose. I can click on here and change different students and see what they answered, or I can use these over here to go through all of that. So, and remember, the teacher did not grade this. The system did that. This is just all the information that's given to the teacher after all of this is done. I'm looking, if I go back, I'm looking at a topic 1 readiness assessment. So this is the assessment given right before you teach that topic. This would be good to give at the end of the topic as well and see how the students score. So here we would expect the scores to be low. But this is the type of data that you're able to get on here. If I want to look at specific students, I go here and look at what they did question by question for all of these. And just click on each of these to get more information on that. The performance analysis is where you would break it down by a specific breakpoint. So this was a readiness assessment. All of these students scored less than 70%. Nobody scored over 70. But if I change that to maybe 50, well, it's not letting me right now. But anyways, we can change that. For some reason, it's not letting me. And then these students were the ones that were not grouped into that. So there's a lot of things that you can do just on the Realize platform. And we understand that having that physical textbook for planning purposes throughout the summer is crucial and it's ideal. We don't know when those will be available for our teachers. Again, hopefully we have an answer by Thursday. But for now, you would have those available here. So if I go to browse and I go to my Algebra 1 textbook that you have access to, this is how the entire course is set up. And if I want to look at the actual teacher's edition, it's also available here. It's not, as I said, it's ideally it's better to have that textbook in front of you so that you can turn page by page on each of those. But because we don't have those physical textbooks yet, this is page by page. Also, what you have is this Realize Reader e-text. So I can go to my table of contents here. And let's go to the topic 1 that we were in a minute ago. And all the teacher pages that I showed you in the PowerPoint are these right here. So I can look at the teacher edition, or if I wanted to, I could look at the student edition as well. But you have all of that here available. And if I go back to the course, the main page for the course here, here's my interactive student edition, and I can look at that as well. Here's my classroom videos on how these topics would be taught, different PD videos, things like that. Again, I'm at the topic level. If I click on a specific topic, sorry, I was at the course level there. If I click on a specific topic here, then I have my lessons. Here's the readiness assessment that we were referring to a minute ago. And exactly how they're listed in the textbook, they are in here, along with all of your assessments. And you also have Spanish assessments here for those, maybe I'm thinking of Davis High School that might need some Spanish assessments like that. So as I click on each of these, let me go to the sample that we were using in the PowerPoint here. I'm in lesson 1, operations on real numbers here. Here's my explore area that we were talking about. Prior to it are my teacher and student additions. Here's my step 2, understand and apply. Example 1, additional example 1, example 2, example 3, example 4. I can click on all of those, and so you see how the students would look at it through here. If I click on example 1, what it is it's not a required problem where students write things down. This takes them through exactly the example in the textbook, just showing them what they see on there. They also have the ability to have it read it out to them, different things, but it goes page by page, example by example in the textbook. So again, those are here. Here's your practice and problem solving. So you have the problems that come in the textbook, or you have the Math Excel that are auto-graded, or you have a mixed review of another Math Excel that's auto-graded. And here's the adaptive practice that this is the one that there's been some technical issues with. So hopefully we have some answers on why this is not working the way that it's supposed to by Thursday again. And then here's your assessment and differentiation. So your lesson quiz, and again, all of your Math Excel practice and your PDFs for those response to intervention, and your student videos and your lessons in Spanish. So all of these are available for every lesson on here. And you also have lesson plans that are included. You can edit them, or they're in PDF form, but it already comes with everything that you need organized to teach the lesson for that day. So we'll give you access to that demo account, and as we said, hopefully we're able to get the actual teacher accounts soon. So let me pause there, see if there's any questions.
Hey, Veronica, while you're right here, yeah, so Heidi has a question about the test generator. Can you show where the test generator is?
Yes, the test generator has to be actually installed by our computer techs, since we're not allowed to install anything on our devices. So what I would suggest is, we'll have to, I think this is a suggestion for myself and Joe, we'll have to contact our computer techs and see how they want to install those on all of our teacher computers, because those have to be uploaded by them. It doesn't come in the realized platform. It's something that has to be installed separate. And along with that, also there's a whole solutions manual for all of the problems that come with a problem, not just the answers, but the solutions of every problem worked out. Those also have to be installed by our techs. So we'll get
That's
that out to you guys.
That's a question for Thursday then. We'll find
yes. Yes.
There's a few other questions going on here that have just now. Jonathan Burton wasn't able to see the data screens you were seeing, but we're in a different account. That should have been his students, but he says he still wasn't able to see his.
Is it the data screens for his classes?
Jonathan, do you want to go ahead and just unmute and ask your questions?
So when I go to data, I get a screen that gives me a choice between class results by assignment and class mastery by standard. Mm-hmm. I don't get the screen that you're seeing that says select the class or anything like that. Well, actually, I can't select a class. I can do that. I'm saying that at the top, sorry. But I have those two options. But then you had a screen under data where you were seeing all sorts of, you're seeing the individual student performance. Mm-hmm. And I can't get to that screen somehow. What do I need to click to get to that? So
at the top of the page, there's a filter menu.
And okay, I don't have that filter menu.
Are you under class results by assignment?
Yes,
And this is not showing up at all?
I'm not seeing the filter option.
What's showing up?
Nothing. That particular line is completely blank.
So let's do this then. Once we're done with everyone, if you want to stay, and then you can
Okay.
share your screen and we can walk you through it.
Okay,
See what's
thank
going
you.
on with that. Okay. Thank you, John. Any other questions from the group?
Hi, this is Edith Curtis. Is there a practice generator for just for them to work on other than just a test generator?
So the math Excel that we were referring to in each of the lessons, let me go back to one of those. Those are the practice that come with each of these. Let me find one that says math Excel. So if you look at this one right here, it says customize. You're able to take questions from what's already given to you by the publisher. It's already set. You're able to take questions and either delete them or customize them in different ways. That would be the closest that we have to a practice generator. I think you're referring to something like the CUDA software that we currently use. So that's the closest that they have in terms of that. Not as seamless as CUDA though.
Will we still get to keep the CUDA?
We are in talks with Mike Rich to see if we're able to keep that. We haven't, or he hasn't decided one way or another yet. But we'll keep the department chairs informed of that. Any other questions?
Go ahead. Beth has her hand raised, so go ahead, Beth. Beth, you may still be muted if you want to unmute. So we didn't hear you, Beth. Do you still have a question? Okay, I don't hear anything.
No.
Go ahead, Veronica. What else do we have?
Okay. Well, to honor your time, it is 2 o'clock, and if you need to be elsewhere, please feel free to go ahead and leave. Know that Joe and I are here to answer any questions that we can in regards to this. I know this was a lot of information thrown out at you in 1 hour. A lot of this was shared with our pilot teachers over the course of a full day, where they got the training for this. So we understand this is a lot to take in. But we wanted to at least give you a quick exposure to what the program is before the school year was out. That way we're not going through the summer without really even knowing what this is. So if any questions come up at any time throughout, please feel free to reach out to Joe and myself. And if we can help in any way, and we'll help out. And if we don't know the answer to something, we'll try to figure it out. But thank you for joining us. And again, we realize we threw a lot of information out at you. And if you or anyone you know would like to be a part of that pacing meeting next week, please let us know.
Thank you, guys. And don't forget to go to the attendance and do that if you haven't already. And there are a few hands up right now, Veronica, okay. So maybe we'll just
yeah, we'll stay on here for any questions that there are.
So Beth, your hand's been up a little bit. Let's see if now we can hear you. So Beth, we're still not hearing you. I show you're not muted. Now it's muted. There you go. You started to come in.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I just wondered if the online teachers edition is going to match the hardback book that LTIS students are handed. They don't get computers. So if I don't get a teacher's edition, which is often the case, will the online teacher's edition help me?
The online teachers edition will be page by page what the hardcover book is. And we are working on getting teachers editions to our long-term independent studies, to our intervention centers, to resource teachers. We're trying to get like teachers editions that are hardcover for those programs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Kevin also has a hand up. So Kevin, if you want to.
Yeah, Veronica, I just wanted to know when we could expect the class list to be downloaded into the programs sometime over the summer, I believe, probably.
It would work just like Schoology does. So our assumption would be that it would be a couple of weeks prior to the start of the school year. That's usually how Schoology does it. So I wouldn't expect it in the middle of the summer. You know how schedules kind of go and everything is finalized right up until, you know, those roundup days. And we're expecting that to be a couple of days, into the school year, of course.
Excellent. And just if I could add something else, speaking on Schoology, is there, and if it was mentioned before, sorry if you can repeat it, is there a way of connecting Pearson to Schoology or Power Teacher? Is that something that is currently in the works, or?
What we've been told by the publisher is currently both systems don't talk to each other in terms of grades being, you know, automatically populated into one to the other. But we will again ask that question on Thursday to see if anything has been updated on that part. But currently as it is, Realize would have its grades and teachers would have to pass those over to Schoology.
Yeah, because
if that's where you wanted it.
Yeah, because a lot of us have already worked and invested in developing materials on Schoology.
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering if coming into next year, there would be a way to access this platform through Schoology, something that a lot of the kids already know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I anticipate everything's going to be staying the same in regards to, you know, submitting grades through Power Teacher and what have you. I'm just thinking about the compatibility between the programs and keeping track of grades and assignments.
Yes, and that's confusion. Exactly. Then that's something that we're going to be talking with the publisher about on Thursday.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions?
So some questions did come up, and let's. Who is still here? Grupinder, do you want to just go ahead? I mentioned earlier about 3 copies. There are going to be a few more teacher editions floating around out there that we could get. If you're at a site that needs more, you know, we ordered everything not knowing exactly what schools, how many Algebra 1 teachers, how many geometry teachers, how many Algebra 2 teachers. So that's information that we're wanting to get from the schools now so that we can see it. Have we ordered? We need to move things around. So Lyanne Albrecht with Library Services, I've been working closely with her over the last 2 weeks. If you guys don't know this, we're not the only adoption this year for Modesto City Schools. We're also doing SWAN Math K6. So there's been a lot going on, and we hope you guys are going to be, we feel you're going to be really happy with this curriculum, and it's going to provide lots of supports for our students.
Hi, Joe. This is Grupinder.
And
you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Thanks for that. Is there something that I can do too, just on the back end? Just because it seems in the past, it always ends up being that then we have to try to share and it's just not effective. Is there somebody that you could maybe suggest, that maybe like a site principal, if we email them or we email special ed directors, just to say, hey, look, they're working on it diligently, but can you support them in some way to make sure that this rollout is smooth for the resource teachers as well?
See, I know for me personally, what's difficult is I've been a math teacher at the junior high, and we have resource and special ed. But as you get into high school, right, it just gets so much more complex with, you don't just have the core algebra, geometry, algebra 2, there's so many other courses. So not knowing exactly how each site utilizes their resource teachers and their special ed classes and all of that, yeah, whatever you guys can get to us, like if you could work with the site administrator, maybe your AP of CNI, and let them what you got are resource teachers and special ed, I think that would help us.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
Crickets. Anybody else have anything? Let's see, I'm out of the chat right now. Mark, you said to describe, I might be cutting somebody off here. I'm going on to the bottom now. Mark, describe the consumable. Is there an electronic version of it that you can access?
So the
Do you know, Veronica, if
consumables,
it's electronic?
the consumables don't have an electronic version of it. They're meant to follow the lessons and the examples on it. It's basically more practice of the same type of problems that you see in the lessons. At least I haven't seen an electronic version of the consumable yet. I don't know if there's a pilot teacher that's still online that has, but we have not seen one yet. But it's basically more extra problems, extra practice problems for each of the lessons. And you'll get a consumable for each student. You don't necessarily have to use it if that doesn't work with the way that you would be teaching. And let's see, the last question, does the consumable have vocabulary like Holt? There is a specific vocabulary builder as part of the enrichment, the differentiation activities. So those do come in digital form and in print form. And in terms of the teacher's account, Edith, if you got an email, if you go back and check your emails, those math teachers that were given demo accounts were emailed with their login information. And if you can't find that, we will look at our list and mail you that information out again. But if you're a current math teacher, you are probably on our list there. But we'll email you that information again. Are there any other questions that I missed?
Veronica, I think I'm having some connection issues. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
So I think for Edith, she did not get an original teacher account when we set those up this spring, but I do want to say there was one she got later on. I'd have to go back and check through my emails, but Edith, if you do not remember, please just email one of us and we'll put it up and see what we've got.
Yes, we'll do that. And I'm looking at the chat here, looking at the CUDA questions. We will talk with Mike Rich and see what the final decision is on that and keep you up to date.
Yeah, and then remember that we had Jonathan Burton wanted to screen share so we can see what's going on with his data.
Yes, we'll look at Jonathan in a minute. Juan, I will include you in the pacing. I will send you an email out for that. Thank you. Jonathan, while we're waiting for questions, would you like to share your screen?
Sure. So do I have permission to do so? Let's see. Will let me? Let's see, I've not done this before with Teams,
Okay.
so let's see if that works. And
So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording of this before you share your screen here.